Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Hall Family Wines Happy Hour. My name is Catherine Hall. I am so glad that you joined today. I have an amazing guest today. I'm going to be joined in just a few moments by Paul Reiser. First, I want to remind any of you who are wanting to buy some wine between now and the holidays, you can do that with us. Just go on our website and you can check it out. We've got some great deals there waiting for you. So my guest is somebody I'm a huge fan of. We have watched him on so many media, on television, in the movies, over the years, so many shows. Mad About You is probably the one that most people knew Paul Reiser from, but so many other shows, most recently Red Oaks, which I have to say I am a huge fan of, and now Stranger Things and the Kaminsky Method and much, much, much more. He's an author, he's a composer, he's a comedian, he's an actor, a pianist, and let's find out what else he can do. Paul Reiser, will you come join us?
Hello, hi.
Hey!
I fear you may have oversold. I may not be, I don't know that I can live up to all those flowery descriptions, but nice to be here with you.
Thank you so much for joining. Well, first, let me get you a glass of wine because I hate to drink alone.
Oh, that is so sweet of you. Let's see if we can do this. And it has your name on the bottle. How cool.
It's my name on the bottle. What can I say? So
Wow.
I'm going to move this over to you through the magic of the internet. And there you are. Oh my gosh. And the label is showing even.
That's wild. My name is on the glass. You can't see it, but I have my engraved glasses. I'm so glad you got right to this. I was afraid you'd dilly-dally.
It's a Paul Reiser glass.
I opened this and it smells delicious. Let's see if it's any damn good.
Well, and if it isn't, just keep it to yourself.
No, that's really good.
But I think you'll like it.
Cheers.
Cheers to you. So, Paul, you do so many things. I mean, it just makes my
That's really good. Let's take a moment. That's really good.
Thank you.
Wow. Yeah, you keep yapping. I'm going to drink this.
Okay. So you do so many things. You are, you got one show after another, and it looks like you've got a lot of things going on at the same time. And then you've got a movie coming out in a couple months. I'm sure that's already done. But anyway, does the pandemic slow you down at all? Or are you just blowing and blowing?
Yeah, it slows everybody down, of course. This is a year like no other. It's an interesting test as a parent. My kids are 20 and 25, but still, they'll ask as if we have answers. I go, well, when will this be over? I'll go, when can we fly again? Yeah. When can we go out? And it's like, okay, not only don't I know, I can safely say we don't know, but nobody knows. So in that way, it's sort of unifying. We're all in this together we're always aware that we are not, thankfully, we have not struggled as so many people are right now. It has been an interesting time. I've in the beginning, certainly, I liked the idea of having to stay home. I normally I could go for days without going out, and sometimes I'll go, I forgot how to drive. It's been 7 days. Yes.
Is that because you're generally driven, or really you just forgot?
No, I drive. No, I'm not driven, but I don't want to go anywhere. So if I have to, I do. But I'm very comfortable at home, and I have my desk, and I have my piano, and I have my wine, and my wine and bourbon have been a big friend through pandemic.
Yes, I think
those are big good friends of ours.
But
I started working just in October. Was it 2 months ago? We started back on the Kaminsky Method on Netflix, but with very, very organized, rigid, many layers of protocol.
Yeah.
And you get used to it, like we all do. Who thought we could wear a mask? I mean, do you remember a time we went in March? We went 2 weeks. We can't do this for 2 weeks. That's impossible.
Yeah.
And now we have. But
I remember, when I got the mask was like just like a little temporary thing. I mean, when we were all wearing paper masks, and now most of us have invested in.
Yeah, and now we're getting fashionable. I'm like, well, this doesn't go with this, and but it's an interesting thing when you have a set. There's 100 and I think they said 140, 150 people all involved with the crew and everything else, and one person infected would take the whole show down. So it's they're very scrupulous about it. I wanted to have my son come to the set one day to visit, and I went, nope, nobody can visit unless you're working that day. I couldn't even visit. So it's certainly a different world in every aspect.
So are you tested every day, or?
We are depending on how much you work. I'm tested like 4 days a week, but I actually elected. I said, let me 5. I don't need it. I don't want to be surprised.
Yeah.
It's a quick thing. Yeah. I had a great idea. This is a great money-making idea. You should get on this. Okay. Open up a COVID testing at every red light, because you're going in there. You're going in there anyway. Why not get something out of it?
Oh my gosh!
What are you thinking? I'm thinking, Catherine.
You're thinking. Okay, that's a muse from a lot of.
Somebody can go run with that. It's a great idea.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I'm sure you could make something with that.
Yeah, and it won't be disgusting. You go, oh, look at that guy. He's so health conscious.
Oh gosh, actually, there are more and more places up in Napa now where you can get tested, but it's just been for a long time. You had to wait for days and sometimes over a week to get in.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, they have it down now. They have, the quick one. They'll tell you 20 minutes, but then they say it's not quite reliable.
Yeah.
So it's usually a day. So I'll get an email or text on Tuesday, said, you're good to work yesterday. I'm like, well, okay, good, because I did work yesterday.
I did.
I'll find out tomorrow if I'm killing anybody here.
Yeah. So then the Kaminsky method, I am so glad that that's coming back for another season, because at least I couldn't tell.
Yeah, it's really fun. The Kaminsky method was, it's supposedly, I've been very surprised by it, because it's about 2 old guys. It's Michael Douglas and Alan Arkin. Mm-hmm. And I have been surprised at how many people, in their 20s will come over and say, oh, I love that show. Oh, really? How many colonoscopy jokes did you enjoy, really? But it's such a superb cast, and it's created by Chuck Lorre, who is sort of a comedy savant and an old friend of mine, which is actually crazily how this happened. I actually just called him to tell him how much I loved the first season. And I jokingly said, we should, why don't we come up with a show like this? Me and another guy sitting in a car, I could do that. How hard could that be? And then he said, would you want to come on this show? I went, all right. Because he had this idea in mind to play Michael, the guy, old guy who goes out with Michael Douglas's daughter. So they aged me up, and I was a couple of weeks later. So be careful what you ask for, kids.
It is so good. It's so good. Well, I have to say, my husband gets the jokes like a lot of the guys on our team wouldn't. But anyway, you can take humor at a lot of different levels, and it's great.
Well, it's really, but it's really kind of elegantly written, because it's how people talk, and you have different concerns in your 60s and 70s and 80s, in Alan Arkin's case. I'm the youngster in my 60s, so I'm the kid. But it's so funny because, on the show, for those who haven't seen it, Michael Douglas plays an actor that never quite made it, but he's a very successful acting coach. So he has this class with these really funny, talented actors who were the kids in the class who were in their 20s. And just everything out of my mouth, I go, oh my God, I'm just so old. Whatever they're talking about, I go, yeah, I don't know what you're saying. I'm older. I'm older than you. And that's where the wine comes in so handy, Catherine.
Yes,
it takes the edge off of that.
So, the cast on, I love Red Oaks. I hated to see that.
Oh, bless you. Nobody saw that show.
I love that show. Oh my gosh.
Well, that's the nice thing about now. Everybody has time. They can look up old shows that they may have missed.
Yeah.
Did you just come upon that now, recently?
Well, not too long ago. I mean, okay. you can, it's streamed. So
yeah, I know. Yeah. But I know I'm catching up on shows from 4 years ago that I missed. So.
Right. I'm seeing.
I'm glad you liked it.
And it's funny. It's also in those sort of 30-minute segments, which is in a way a throwback, because
right.
shows are longer now.
Yes.
During streaming.
It's an interesting thing. You know, we did last year, we came back on Mad About You, and we did 12.
Yeah.
And in the new world of streaming, we said, oh, well, we can curse now, and we can be long. And then we suddenly found out we don't want to really curse. It doesn't feel right. And when we went a little bit past, 23 minutes is most sitcom, when we got to 25, 26, it's too long. There is sort of an organic thing that we are, as you say, accustomed to. This is how big comedies are. This is how big dramas are. Yeah. And if you stray too far, it feels off.
Yeah, right. It is. And even if you sort of binge, which now these days I hardly ever just watch one show.
No, right.
Well,
it used to be, yeah. It used to be when you would go in to pitch a show for the network, and they say, well, what do you imagine the next season would be? And now it's like, what's the next episode? Because you do watch 2, 3, and you have to, you don't need to recap last week because you just saw it. So it is it's totally changed our viewing habits. And shows like the Kaminsky Method and Red Oaks, it's easy they're like little mints, you watch 3 or 4 at a time.
So good. So I want to say something to all of your fans who are watching. You can pose questions if you want. And Paul said that he would be glad to answer. And he'll answer the nice ones.
The nice ones, the nasty ones, you'll have to handle those.
But the not so nice ones. So
I'll tell you what's a nice thing. Hold on. I'll tell you what one of the nice things about, there's so many new platforms. And it seems like, and there's things I've never heard of. One of the nice things about it, as I was saying, you can catch up with shows that you may have missed. In my case, I had a show that I created and produced called There's Johnny, which took place at the Johnny Carson show in 1972. And it was on briefly on Hulu, very under promoted. Nobody really knew about it. And then this summer, Peacock was born. NBC has this Peacock platform. And I went, well, this should be on Peacock because it's about Johnny Carson and it takes place in an NBC show. And in fact, the star of our show is a young woman, a really talented actress named Jane Levy, who is now the star of Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist. So made a phone call and Peacock said, yes, this should be on Peacock. So now that show is on Peacock. And so it's wonderful. We live in a world where things can have a second life. And that one makes me really happy because I'm really proud of that show. And anybody who's seen it loves it, but so few people have seen it. So get Peacock and go watch There's Johnny and pour a bottle of Hall's wine.
Oh, is that the perfect combination?
I
mean, I remember Johnny Carson for sure. Yeah, I mean, he was just he was the guy.
He was the guy, and when I was growing up in New York, and I would watch the show. I was a teenager, and I don't know that I had it in my mind. Oh, I want to be on that show or anything, but it just seemed like the coolest place to be. And 1972 is exactly when he moved the show from the East Coast to California, to beautiful downtown Burbank.
Right.
And then it sort of like it became in color and it was really cool. So that's when this show takes place. And when it was a pivotal moment, and we did a really fun thing where we have clips. We did it in partnership with Carson's company. And so we had access to the vault. So we could use any clips that we wanted. So we would just like kids in a candy shop. I was, well, let's find a George Carlin clip and put that in the show. Let's find Albert Brooks and Steve Martin. So we have genuine, you're watching really 2 shows. You're watching our show, but inside our show are pieces of Johnny Carson. And it's pretty seamless. People go, well, how did you do that? I go, well, if you look, you can see the seams, but don't look. So for me, it was like, that's what I would stay up when I was a kid. I would stay up. It was on 11:30.
Yes.
And your guy wouldn't come on till 12. So you had to sneak. I had to sneak.
Yeah.
And wait up for George Carlin and all my favorites.
Yeah, the Tippy Weatherman. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So and what's funny, I tell you what was really interesting. Now in the world of streaming, which is great, as we were saying, you can watch all these shows, but they're all kind of, there's nothing urgent. Whatever you is, if you missed it, you'll catch it later. But 1,000 years ago in the 70s, you couldn't do that. You didn't even have a DVR. So if somebody was on the Tonight Show, you had to stay up. And then you would remember it because it was part of. So I've been watching these clips with George Carlin and Steve Martin. I'm like, I haven't seen this in 45 years, but I remember it and I know what happens next because it somehow was more impactful. I wouldn't say important, but if you cared about it, you remembered it. And that's really a sign of a bygone era. That's why Johnny Carson was so entrenched in our lives. He was there every night and you had to stay up and not sleep because of him or fall asleep during him. He was part of our lives. So it was a real treat to make that show.
He was also just so good. I mean, that's sort of the reactions and.
Yes. Everybody who does that show, now, Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel and Conan and Steve and Colbert, everybody, and Letterman certainly will acknowledge they're just trying to be Johnny, not to imitate him, but we all grew up and that was the gold standard.
Yeah.
As is this.
So, as the gold standard.
Selling.
So let me say something about, so this.
Please, because what am I, by the way, should there be bones? I'm tasting it. There's a bone. No, I'm kidding.
Should there be bones?
I've never had a Cabernet with bones, but other than that, it's a delightful drink.
No, there are no bones in this wine, I promise, and no bones. However, so this actually comes from my backyard, which is part of the reason that we give this my name, or I give it my name.
In your backyard.
Yeah, it's a beautiful vineyard that's in the middle of Napa Valley. It's hillside fruit, and it always we get a lot of awards on this wine. It just always has this really lovely dark fruit, just a lot of sort of the silky texture to it, maybe a little bit of coffee,
Oh, I don't know enough to know that. Let me see if I can taste the coffee.
Yeah.
A little coffee.
Well, you get the dark berry, right?
I get the dark berry.
Yeah, for sure.
And if I'm not mistaken, it's coffee and a muffin. I'm tasting a little bit of muffin.
Maybe a little bit.
That's how strong the coffee is.
Yeah, to go.
Now, can I ask you a dummy guy question? So, because on this particular hillside fruit, if that same process and the same seeds and everything were on a different hill, it would taste different.
It would.
Wow.
It's really, that's part of the art of winemaking, is that it's just these wines, every vineyard has its own character, and it's all these many different variables that go into it. It's the way the vines face the sun. It's the wind that's there. It's the type of the dirt. It's the sort of it's the weather that comes in. It's how cool the weather happens to be this year. I mean, this particular vineyard, the fruit will change every vintage. So we always know it's going to have dark fruit. It's going to have a lot of, I really do think that coffee sort of comes.
But you know in advance, if it's cold, you go, oh, this berry's going to come in a little bit heavy or dark or lighter or something?
No, we can guess, but the berries have a life of their own. It's so much an art. That's part of, I think, what makes a lot of us come back to this every year. I mean, you learn techniques, we have tools that give us ability to really refine what we do when we make wine or when we grow wine. but it really is, you can't capture it. It's just,
it's
unique.
It's sort of like making a movie or TV. There's so many things that can go wrong. And if you sidestep all of them, then you have a winner. But it's not easy.
Bingo. Yes. And there's also, I don't know if this is probably the same in your profession, but I'll just tell you in mine. You always have a chance to cut a corner when you're making a wine. You can always try to hang more berries on a vine so that you can get a little more fruit out of an acre, or there's just always different things that you can do. But if you cut those corners, once you start, it's a real slippery slope.
That's great. Yeah. Well, that is true with everything. I remember we had a director come on, sort of visiting director on Mad About You years ago. And, we would get a script on Monday and we'd work on it and shoot it on Friday. And he said a very nice thing. He goes, why you guys are doing well? Because what I'm impressed with, he said, most people will be done on Thursday and say, we got it and we're done. Let's just shoot it. He said, but you're not satisfied until everything is working, and you're well into Friday and you're still going. I went, and it struck me. I went, I guess, but how would you not? Why would you cut a corner when you have a chance to not cut a corner? But you didn't cut a corner. I'm enjoying this.
Thank you.
Could you pass a sandwich through there? Is that possible? Great with a sandwich. I don't want to push my luck.
Boy, I would like to be able to do that. Yeah. Okay, next show. Let's just do that next time. I'll be a
sandwich. Yes, that's a show. We pass a sandwich through the thing.
I got to get it through.
So now, what was it? All I noticed on your wines, forgive me. Well, there's different names. Like the bottles look the same, and then I look. Oh, this says Bob's Ranch. This says somebody else's ranch. Those are different physical places.
They're different vineyards. They're sort of, the idea is we make. Oh my goodness, I think we probably have about 22 different Cabernets alone that we make. And on top of that, probably 12 different Pinot Noirs. And anyway, a lot of different.
Those are all from each has its own place?
And each has its own place. Some of them, except that some of them are blends from maybe 2 or 3 different vineyards. So it's just, it gives, part of what you want to do is, as somebody, when you own a winery, is you want to be able to attract and keep the very best talent that's out there too. And part of the way that you keep great talent, I really do think we have the best winemakers anywhere. I'll put our winemakers up against anybody, or our vineyard workers, is that we give them so much leeway so that they can sort of do their craft, let it move. And so
yes, again, that's the same in any art form. It's like let the person, let the artist do what they do. So now, is this first generation or is this second generation?
Second. My dad was a grower. My dad never wanted to make wine. He just wanted to grow the grapes, which are, that's 95% of what's in a glass, is what happens in the vineyard. But I think I've always felt that last 5% is pretty important, because how you make wine is also really critical. So anyway, we sort of added on another layer, and with my husband, we have a lot of our vineyards today are a whole lot better, honestly, than my father's were too. But anyway, we're multi-generations, and then my daughter is in the business.
I see. Yeah, so it's now third generation. So how many acres does it take to make all your wines?
Oh, well, we partner with a lot of vineyards too. So about half of our wine comes from vineyard partners. So we don't own all the vineyards we pick our wine from.
How big is a vineyard? Is a vineyard?
Thousands. Oh, some vineyards, some of our vineyards, we only take 6, 7, 8 acres of fruit. So it's very small.
Wow.
That's really sort of a very large backyard up in Napa Valley. And so it's probably all together, we're collecting fruit from thousands of vineyards, thousands of acres, around. So we have a little game that I want to play with you before.
Oh boy.
So, and it's so hard to stop just chatting with you, probably because it just is.
You can chat. The wine is helping. I'm remarkably interesting if you've had a lot of wine. If you've had a lot of wine, I'm fascinating.
Well, I thought you were fascinating at the beginning, so what can I say? I'm a fan. Here, this game is called Sip or Spill. And so you can I'll ask you some questions, if you're willing, and you can either spill the beans, which, or if you don't want to answer the question, you can take a sip of wine. So I like to think that you're going to win.
Either way, it's a win-win. Okay.
Okay. So here we go. Here's our sip or spill. And remember, everybody, you can ask some questions. I'm not even looking at it because I'm having too much fun here, but we'll do some here. What is the most embarrassing thing, Paul, that has happened to you on a set? Now you can take a sip.
I can't. I can't even think. I'm sure there are many. I must have blocked them out. So I'll sip on that.
I think that's
Another one. Give me another one.
okay.
Happy to spill if I have an answer.
Okay. What is the craziest untrue thing that you've read about yourself in a tabloid?
I live with Jay Leno. We just did a thing about. I just did Jay Leno's garage show with him, and we did a little joke about this. I'm sitting at home, and it's just clickbait, and it has they'll take a picture of two people that have nothing to do with each other, and goes, "Who knew they lived together?" And it's always like Ann Coulter and J.J. Walker, and you're going, "What?" And then you go look, and there's nothing. And I had a picture of Jay and I, because our wives are on the board of the same organization. So we went to a benefit last year, and there's a picture of Jay and I in a suit, and it said, "Where do you see who Jay lives with?" And we're like, "What? That's me." When you click it takes you to some banking thing or whatever. There's nothing. And so I got 1,000 emails like, "Paul, do you want to talk about this? We didn't know. Does your wife know?" So,
Gosh,
Jay was very proud of it.
I don't know, Paul. I just think it makes you seem very modern.
Yes, right. And we don't make a big deal about it. We just, tell jokes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Speaking of jokes, what is your favorite dad joke?
Oh, my favorite dad joke?
Yeah.
Well, the running joke in my house, and it's almost close to not being a joke, is that my kids and my wife will say something and I either don't hear it or I don't understand it. And very loudly, clearly for my enjoyment, my benefit, they'll say, "What are we going to do about Pop? So, is it time to put him in a home?" And I'll go, "I can hear you. I can still hear you." So it's as I say, it's almost not a joke.
Yeah.
Soon it'll be not a joke. And they go, "We shouldn't have said that all those years," because now he's quite over it now.
Yeah.
We have to just put him away.
Oh,
but I'll have my wine,
but
and we'll always have this, Catherine. So
yeah, we always have wine, and
who cares what my kids say?
And it does get better. Wine does get better, as do we all, I'd like to say. Okay, let's take some questions from.
Please.
I've got so many more sipper spills, but we're
No, go ahead. Let's see what they have.
Yeah, come on, you guys.
They have to live up to your standard.
Which of your co-stars over the years have been the most fun to work with?
Well,
I mean, how can you not do Helen Hunt?
Well, certainly Helen, and that was really the reason that we did a little revisit. We were reluctant for years. We were always very clear we're never going to go back and ever do a reunion. But when everybody was there a couple of years ago, there were all these reboots, and so people were asking us, and we were having lunch one day, and we said we would never do that. Well, would we? And then we said, well, that'll be fun. So that was great fun. I would say certainly Helen, because that was we did 7 and now 8 years. But I'll tell you the other big thrill. I did a movie 15 years ago or so with Peter Falk, and I wrote this movie. I wrote the movie for him because I wanted to be in a movie with Peter Falk, and nobody was inviting me. So I said, I think I'll have to write it myself. And I always had this thought that Peter Falk should be my father. So, because he reminded me of my dad, and my dad loved Peter Falk. And so I wrote this movie, and I sent it to him. I didn't really know him. And then he called me back that night. And at 11:30 at night, I got this message on my answer machine. "Well, we got to make this movie." I said, "Oh, I think that's Peter Falk." And then we went and we made it. And he was the only actor I grew up really just adoring. And he was everything that I dreamed of. He was funny and cantankerous and brilliant and just, I loved him to pieces. So that was a thrill.
Oh my gosh. So what about him reminded you of your dad?
It's funny. Well, I'll tell you what, the moment of, see, the wine is hitting me now. I just loved him as a kid. I mean, as a kid, I didn't care about acting. I didn't want to be an actor. I think if anything, I wanted to be a comedian. or center fielder for the Yankees, but I knew that wasn't really going to happen. So they still have not called. But I loved him as a kid. And then when I was in my adulthood, in my 20s somewhere, I was visiting my parents, and my father was watching, just happened to have on TV, some Peter Falk movie, and he's laughing. And I said, he's the only guy that I remember my father always enjoying. And I just had this moment of, Peter Falk, my father, there's something in there. Peter Falk should play my father. I'll write it. So for years, it took me a long time to write it. I would start and start and stop and start. But the funny thing was, years later, once he came on, he read the script and we were going to make the movie. We had a dinner, my wife and Peter and his wife. And it was, as fun as you would imagine. And as we're leaving, we get in the car. My wife goes, "Oh my God, that's your father." I went, "I know. He doesn't look like my father." And in a funny way, he was my father's age, but he was sort of closer to me in that we were both idiot actors whose fathers could not understand their sons wanting to be idiot actors. And so in a way we had that in common. We were of that generation, but he was so my father. And I wrote this, and I just love his rhythm and his voice. So it was such a joy to write these speeches for him. And when he did them, I went, yeah, that's just what I pictured. It was like, oh my God, he's so good. He's so good. I think it was the last movie he made.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I killed him.
Oh, you killed him. I just think,
It's called The Thing About My Folks. And if you've not seen it, go rent it. You can skip my part. Just watch Peter because he's just delicious. He's just brilliant.
And it's called what again?
It's called The Thing About My Folks. It was really the story that it was the road trip I always wanted to take with my real dad. We never did. And so it was really about my parents. It's vaguely fictionalized. I was always fascinated with the idea of, you look at your parents, whoever you are, you look at your parents and all you see is them as an older married couple with kids. But they didn't start that way, right? So they always they must have been, at some point, they dated and they both went, "Oh, you're really cute and you're really cute." And oh my gosh. Yeah. And by the time you come along, they just, they're squabbling. You go, how did they get from nice to squabble? So it was really a look at my parents, but using Peter to play my dad. And Olympia Dukakis played my mother. And
oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was good. Here's the crazy thing. Olympia Dukakis, who is so brilliant, she actually played my mother in 2 movies. But Olympia Dukakis, who played my mother in this movie, in real life was married for 50 years, was married to a wonderful actor who played my father in Mad About You. So my fake father was married to my fake mother.
Oh, the world is too small.
That's crazy.
That is totally crazy. Oh my gosh. Okay. I have to let you go, but before we do, you also—
Where do I have to go? I got wine and people who want to ask me stuff. All right, whatever you want. I'm good for—
But I do want to ask you, so you have a movie coming up. It's another Hood. You've written so many Hoods, but this is—
I didn't write this one. Yes,
this one. You didn't write this one.
Kevin Hart is in a movie called Fatherhood, and I bet you they'll change the name before it comes out. It was going to come out this year, and then they moved it to next year. And it's a really very sweet movie. Kevin Hart's kind of a really genius, and it's a very sweet role about a single father who raises his kid, and his wife. You'll see it. His wife dies in childbirth, and he has to raise the kid himself, and he knows nothing about it. And I play his boss, and it was just really great fun to work with him. He's this big, by the way. You can put him in your pocket. Kevin Hart, you can put him in your pocket. You can take him with you. That's how short he is. That's out in April. And then Kaminsky Method we're making now. And then Stranger Things I may or may not be in. I can't tell you because I'm not allowed.
Ooh.
But you can watch it anyway.
Yes, I know. It's scary.
I have so much wine to drink still.
Yes, you do. Paul, it has just been so fabulous to have you on. Thank you so very, very much for being a part of the show. Any last things you want to say to the folks who adore you, who've been watching us today?
To the folks who adore me,
yes.
Would you call my wife? She's so over it. People go, "Oh, he must be funny all the time." She goes, So that's what I would ask. Just help me out a little bit. Call her and remind her of what is good about me, because it gets harder and harder to see as the years pile on. But luckily, we have our wine, and with your name on it, by the way.
Okay.
I have, by the way, I'm not at my own vineyard, but I have stationery with my name on it. You can't see it.
Oh my goodness.
I have more cards. So
Yes, that's pretty
it's
cool.
like having my own vineyard. But thank you for inviting me. This was great fun, and I hope
so much fun.
anybody got anything out of this.
Thank you so much, Paul. I just we'll all be seeing you on the screen, various devices.
Yes, and go watch. Check out There's Johnny on Peacock. It's really good. And when this is all over, I'd love to come up and see how they do what you do, because it's really delicious.
I'd love to share it with you. And
all right, I look forward.
Got it.
You got it. Cheers.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Cheers. Well, is he cool or what? Thank you, everybody, so much for joining. I'm sure you had a wonderful time. I hope you had at least as much fun as I did, because Paul Reiser is just so one of a kind, and what an amazing talent. We'll be back. We have many more wonderful shows ahead. Please come on and join us. We'll be on Facebook and on Instagram Live, and check us out. You can check us out online. We'll be back again tomorrow on Walt. Cheers to you all. In the meantime, until we see each other again, stay healthy,